Welcome back. Now, in our interview slot, we are focusing on the just announced cabinet by President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah that saw a reduction of ministers that would likely bring relief to the bloated public servants' wage bill, the merging of some key ministries, and also touching on the national budget that is set to be announced tomorrow. Business Today's senior producer Timo Andreas earlier spoke to economist Rodney Coab. Let's now join that conversation.
Good evening, Rodney, and thank you for joining us here on Business Today.
Thank you, Mr. Andreas, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Let's start by discussing the significance of the appointment of ministers in any government in terms of the country's economic benefits and also from an economic and national developmental perspective.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Andreas, for the wonderful question. And I also thank the Namibian nation. They've been very patient throughout the process of transition, and it is one of those transitions where our people were really eager to wait and see what will happen. There was even an interim period because we have lost our former sitting president, and then we had an acting president standing in for him in the interim. And then to have a substantive government basically brings that sense of delight into the nation, but not just a sense of delight. It is one of the pivotal points where decision makers were chosen, a very lean team and a very good, very technocratic, and also not too much politically appointed team, but also a merit-based team as well, from the perception of the people. The importance of having ministerial oversight in our position helps us to drive our national goals and agenda. It is from them that they lay the platform and sets the guidelines upon which ministries will operate. It's not just a person that is given a position or an appointment, but under them they'll be having staff complements of 30,000 people, even easily, and they have to manage this staff complement. Not just them, they have to manage implementation of policies that are very much plenteous in their structure, and they have to ensure that for the next 5 years we are set up. And then they have to also ensure that at the same time that the mandates and the instructions that they receive from the president is carried out, either from how it was done now from the SWAPO Manifesto implementation plan or from the NDP6 that we are busy structuring.
For too long, critics have been complaining that the number of ministers and deputies, there were too many. A situation that has been linked to the high public servants' wage bill. What is your reaction to the reduced number of ministers and their deputies?
In a very short answer, in a punked way, it eliminates that element of giving a favoritism or rewarding someone a favor because of the sense that they have appointed you or put you in power. It demonstrates that there is no point of intimidation for you just to reward somebody with a position, but it is merit-based. Reason being, when people or office bearers enter a certain office, there is an element of manipulation that comes with them to say, if I have empowered you and given you a constituent power or delegation or authority, then it means that I can decide for you to have such a number of deputies and such a number of ministers. But I believe that the president has been said that from going henceforth, we should maintain this pace. And it's also a good reflection internationally and within the region, whereas Namibia is doing something in a very dynamic, in a different way. And I applaud that because of the fiscal burden it also carries. We are talking about 130 billion just splashed on remuneration on civil servants. And then also in that sense, if a public service is too much bloated, then you have a question of efficiency, basically. Is the efficiency not good that you cannot rely on a core, robust team? And I believe she has demonstrated that she wants a robust team to depend on.
And rating agencies, when they rated us in the past, part of their recommendations were that our wage bill for public servants is too high, and we need to reduce on that. Now with some of this reduction in the cabinet, are we likely to get a favorable rating from rating agencies when they are going to rate us in the next round?
Rating agencies operate on the premise of investors, and the investors always analyze the risk that comes along with a little bit of non-aligned or non-structured type of appointments. Reason being, they have to ensure that the country generates money and fair taxation. If you have a big civil service, it basically means the country is just circulating the taxable income within its own people or own segment of work segment, and that is not productive. It doesn't mean, it means the economy is not growing on what it's supposed to grow. The economy is supposed to grow on industrial and economic excellence or performance. And when it just grows by wage taxation, it is a bad reflection on the rating agencies, because when they see, if they see that the civil service is quite adjustable or margin on the margins, they know that the economy is well structured. And with that, I believe we should have better ratings in the end.
Perfect. And some key ministries were merged. How would you describe this move in terms of service delivery? And also, will this help us or boost us to reach our developmental goals?
Yes. The advent of having merged ministries, I believe, and I would think that they may also come with diverse number of directorates. If we mind that directorates were established previously to oversee certain instruments of policy and regulations, they were there to respond to those policies and to respond to different activities. You can actually have more directorates within a ministry without having a lot of ministers. And I believe that when the role is aligned in such a way, it's more like a pyramid. At the end of the day, they all report to the presidential office, and it doesn't matter how many are there, but if they have got well-described functions, and then if it becomes too much, or if the burden becomes too much within those functions, I believe they will look at more at having a directorial or a directorship within those roles. For example, if someone is dealing with mandates of industrialization, mines, and energy, I believe they will look at the scope of having different people to commission these activities and licensing and regulations. If someone is having a mandate of international relations, trade, and also affairs of diplomacy and so on, they would look at how they can spread this among directors instead of having it as a centralized role that the minister has to be responsible for. Therefore, I believe that adjustments are still coming, and then with these adjustments that a lot of people, it can be probably even to their advantage of having a better position, to be better suited in greater roles, or it can be to the detriment of some people. And I believe the government will use the best measures to identify which of the segments of these structures they really do not need. Probably some of them are even redundant as we speak and may not even be recycled.
New industries such as green hydrogen, oil and gas, they have been placed under the office of the president. How would you describe this move, and how likely is this going to shape the planning and the implementation of these projects, and how effective is this strategy going forward, considering fast-tracking of the implementation process?
Those sectors are incubationary in their structure, and for them, before they mature, to ensure that there is good oversight and good supervision, the president has done the job to make sure that she keeps them closer to her chest, to ensure that she can be directly accountable for it or be held directly accountable for it, and that also to make sure that there is confidence in terms of the establishment. Projects always carry the fear of financial commitment and guarantees, whereas if you have the highest authority who decides over the overall budget of Namibia, gives the mandate, I'm sure that they will come also with the financial backing and the right measures to support these industries. Whereas if you have to go through certain parties, it also gives the investors that little bit of doubt whether it will happen or not. But if investors in the oil sector and the gas sector travels to Namibia and then happen to sit with somebody who has to report to the president, then for them it is not very motivational. They would want a scenario where the president's office commissions and ensures and basically babysits their challenges and what they're going through. And with these, I'm sure later the roles will be rolled off or derelegated to other parties that are responsible for them. And I believe also in future Namibia will have a directorate separate or a ministry, probably separate for oil and petroleum, because these are sectors that are also put by neighboring countries as a separate entity. And once they become mature, I think it will be a different story for governance.
And these two industries, that's oil and gas and green hydrogen, they are very prone to corrupt activities. And we have heard the president when she was addressing her ministers. Her stance on corruption, she spoke strongly against it. Could this be a deliberate move to place these two within her office so that she reprimands any corrupt activity as soon as it shows its ugly head?
Yes, there's a statement that says that the fish rots from the head. Basically, it means that nobody would want a bad reflection of a such sector upon themselves. And anybody who creates a bad perception at the highest office would definitely not be suitable to serve anywhere else. And I believe that it will root for a strong sense of accountability, because you would not want the president's office to look bad through any dubious means. We have seen in neighboring countries how these sectors have been prone to abuse, actually. And I believe that in order to avoid this, we should apply all instruments of transparency and accountability. And I believe the president's office is rightly suited from a development perspective and also from an ethical perspective. I think it was the right way to do it. Previously, we have also raised concerns about the structure of the ministry in terms of having too many mandates. And with too many mandates come the aspect of not having a core focus area, and also then there's gaps and things that fall through in how it's set up, and it impediments actually the growth of the country.
The new finance minister is expected to table her maiden budget statement tomorrow in the National Assembly. What are some of the key priority areas that you would expect from her maiden budget statement?
I believe the new minister came at a very good time. The groundwork was already laid and well done. We witnessed significant growth in GDP of about 5.7% last year compared to 5.9% the previous year. In terms of real GDP, about 171 billion that we have accumulated. And apart from the slide in the diamond mining sector, which is about, it was significantly down, the entire industry has lost over 5.7 billion, the diamond industry, from the processing side and also the mining side as a combined figure. The agriculture was down with 2%, and then we have a downfall in the fishery sector also, I think about 3.7%, which is not very good. I mean 7% actually in the fishery sector. But positive for livestock, and I believe it will be another positive year going second to benefit from the beautiful rains that we had recently. Nonetheless, that tells you about the picture is already very clear and very good. For her, it is a moment just to rise to the occasion and to take charge of it. But what will be a bit different will be handling of the portfolio of, because it was Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises, the portfolio of public enterprises would either have a strong financial burden, because you don't just divorce from departments just like that. There is a financial factor which comes with it. And I believe we have to somewhere read along the lines in how the alignment is done, that there is not a cost factor for the government. We have also here in the space of the political structures that they want to bring on new or revive previous sectors like Air Namibia. They want to work effortlessly to fix the roads. They want to work to deliver quick responses that addresses to the needs of the people. We have social media that is going abuzz only because of a breach of collapse or a breach is not in a stable mode. That tells you that this money has to come from somewhere. And that gives actually the current minister the liberty, not at the moment, because I believe everything is tied already, but because of the previous continued staff members that is retained from the previous administration. But it gives her that liberty to review the midterm budget outlook. And we can probably have a different conversation when we have a midterm budget outlook. Then I believe, are we still going to be at 90 billion, or are we going to go to 110 billion? Okay, are we going to surpass those numbers? And how is she spending it to meet the new, and it's a very aggressive, Timo, it's a very aggressive development trajectory we are going. You have to build 10,000 houses. You need 86 billion for development. You have to have stadiums that are second-level CAF, tier 2 CAF level into regions. You must build 12 region hospitals. All of this is a whole different language. And I believe from there, I believe that she has the right head on the shoulders for it.
Still on the budget, the U.S. government has withdrawn U.S. aid in Namibia that has for years funded various projects, including health in Namibia. And How is this going to affect tomorrow's budget, considering that the gaps that were previously filled through the US funding would now require government, Namibia's own funding?
That's a very good question, and I would credit you guys for doing also proper research for such critical needs that actually responds or questions that are raised by people. It is not just the healthcare workers, but it is also the beneficiaries of these programs. And the government, luckily, or should I say, we are blessed with a government that has direct grant systems through healthcare, which is free, and then education as well. However, this money has to come from somewhere. And once the gap has been put there, we have to understand that easily this can contribute towards even 3 or 5% to GDP. And this, it had a tumbling effect also. Other countries also became a bit nationalistic in terms of their approach and say our taxpayer money, we should protect it. And from that, I would call it aggressive nationalism or too much radicalized nationalism. It will have an effect on us. Not that we have to account for our own payments, but the dualistic approach of having support from other governments means that you get support in terms of technology and also support in terms of capacity and skills. The way we used to do things, they bring the skills set on board, which makes us to approach our programs in a different way. And through that, we implement them with convenience and with ease and with better technology. But if there is a gap, then it also means that there is also a challenge on the way or the structure these things were done. It is going to affect us. We have to take the cost. We have to account. I believe, and I would motivate or encourage the finance ministry to count the losses and how much it will cost to fill those gaps that were affected by the withdrawal. I know that in South Africa's case, some of this has been restored, but we are not sure yet in terms of Namibia. Some projects we don't know yet. It's uncertainty, basically.
Mm. And briefly, finally, the president is prioritizing the SWAPO Manifesto as a national development policy. How impactful will this be in view of the current budget and other developmental plans?
If the reflection about, my personal reflection about the document or the implementation plan, from the onset, one would think it is more about social development issues, but because it is covering more about active, it is more about the creative sector, it is about youth empowerment, it is about land and housing, it is about social economic welfare, it has got aspects of health as well, and number 7 one is the land itself, which is the 7th pillar. But then it also cascades a little bit on enablers that are there structured. In health, for example, they want to transform it to digitalize the sector a little bit. They want to move, as I mentioned previously, in terms of sports and creative activities. How can they set up stadiums, tier 2 CAF stadiums on the regions? They want to look at more district hospitals. It is a very good approach, and I believe currently the government also has responded to this. And they said, let us sit together, and then we find areas where we can blend the two approaches, where we have the implementation plan blended with the NDP6, which was before it was released. And I just hope there is enough time, actually, because they're also speaking about 10,000 houses per annum. I believe it's per annum, but they want to be consistent in terms of their deliveries.
Is that doable?
Not very sure at the moment, but there's also segments where they have inserted that RCC has to, I think, for servicing. There are also some of the very aggressive needs or expectations. And some of them, as I would argue from an economic perspective, I would ask them, how did you come to the value of 86 billion? Because it is there, they have given figures and breakdowns, but then I want to ask, did you get the quotations? Did you get the preparation work, the assessment, how much will it cost? Most of the time, if planning is not done, something will fail at implementation. But mind you, planning is also one stage where we actually spend a lot of money and have to, in order for us to have a very well-scrutinized strategy to make it fail-proof. And that is basically some of the considerations. If you have assumed an office, the first 1 year or 2 years, you will assume a role of planning as well, and not just execution. One of the pillars, some of the pillars in the document have highlighted that it will be executed within the next 2 years. But if you look at it, it's a bit ambitious. And I think we should now sit together and with inputs from different parties, because when you come to the element of implementation, you have to consult with the respective stakeholders on the activities that you're imposing on them, if they have the resources, if they have the capacity, and if they can execute it within the given time. Then only you have a final document. But if it's a one-sided approach, then it basically means that it's already the failure in terms of your expectations on that. Because everything must if an aeroplane flies in the sky, it has to make sure that the tarmac and the platform for landing is prepared for its arrival. If the aeroplane is an Airbus A380, then he can fly to Namibia, but then when he comes here, an AC will tell them that we do not have the capacity to endorse what you want us to do. Therefore, land and servicing has to be ready. And I believe also they have also, one of the highlights is also that they want to structure it in a way to bring up private-public participation with incentives as well. Let me tell you, Timo, if that is one of the biggest focus areas, because private sector wants to assist the government. For example, you find big companies that just wants to build staff housing. But if you tell a big company, O&L Group, for example, before you set up a factory, you have to go through the conventional process. If you have to tell them before you build 100 houses for your staff members, you have to go through the conventional process, again to Ministry of Lands, or to regional councils, or to City of Windhoek, then you have already choked some of the expectations in that document. Therefore, bring back the pillar of public-private participation, and I think we can look at it from that angle.
Rodney, thank you so much for joining us here on Business Today. We appreciate you as always.
Thank you, Timo.
Insightful discussion indeed. We do look forward to the maiden budget presentation tomorrow. Well, that also brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Business Today. Thank you very much for watching. Pleasant viewing further.